All right, so another one of my favorite things to do with the jump is to use sort of long duration finishers contrasted with jumps at the end of our workout. So you've already seen how we do dumbbell jumps and standing verticals at the beginning. We're gonna cycle back around at the end, and we're gonna use a finishing movement, like in this case, a belted march. Even with our belted marches, we do them a particular way. Why don't you get hooked in, DJ? So normally, when DJ was in his prime, he'd done up to either 10 or 10 plates on there. So 450 pounds loaded onto a loading pin. Today, he's no longer an athlete, so I'm gonna take it easy on him. He's only gonna do 3. Okay, so this is more of it as an example. DJ is pretty large. Again, he's tall, he's relatively heavy. So there is a component of the weight needs to be heavy enough relative to the size of the athlete to provide the stimulus that we're looking to get. But even if you're too, say, weak to handle that kind of load relative to your own body, it'll also just work as a great exercise for your lower limb, for your foot, your ankle, your calf, to build up your hips, your glutes. You're gonna see real quickly, this is an exercise that a lot of my former athletes have nightmares about, but I have dreams about it. I love it. So DJ's gonna stand up. So you're gonna see right off the bat, this is a 5-foot long belt, okay? So again, DJ's very tall, so it hangs really wide, it hangs really high, it's pushing his feet out. What that functionally does, you notice he's not getting his feet very high at all. Because his feet are so wide, he can't lift them high, he would just fall over. However, along with that comes this unique benefit that he gets all of his weight on that forefoot and the toes. Very little weight, if any, is in his heels. They're just kind of kissing the ground at the bottom of each step. So we try and keep this pace, roughly 3 steps per second, and we're gonna try and go for 2 full minutes. Again, from the side here, what you're gonna see is that belt is pulling his hips forward. Now he's gonna try and actively keep his chest up and stay nice and big and tall. And that's gonna mean that his glutes and his upper hamstrings, all this on the posterior chain side, everything's gonna be working in overdrive to try and keep his torso upright. But as well, we're getting a ton of volume to our legs, and it's coming at the cost of, no real pressure on the spine. There's no spinal compression. Everything is from the hips down. Now, DJ's being a trooper and he's just walking through this as I talk. We don't actually have a timer going. I would normally have the kids go for 2 minutes and then immediately come over here and jump. But I'm just gonna talk and run through this. Who knows how long it'll actually take. But kids ordinarily, after like 25, 30 seconds, they're gonna look at you and go, "Coach, I can't do this, I can't do this. I'm not gonna be able to get through." Something about the pressure being on the hips, on the pelvis, it freaks people out. It overwhelms them. It can be just a very overstimulating experience. So if your kids are young enough, like this might not be for them, but when you start to get to, teenagers, upper middle school, high school, and definitely into college and into the pros, this is a technique that I've seen work with, NFL cornerbacks and help them to get their all-time jump PRs many years deep into even an NFL career. So after about 2 minutes, I'm gonna have him put it down here in a second. You can go ahead and put it down, yeah. He's gonna unclip, he's gonna get down. Again, normally he would probably use, on a light day, 6 or 7. Over time, we're gonna try and increase that. We wanna get to the point where it's really hard just to get his feet off the ground, where it's almost like he's marching in his own shoes and he can feel the soles of those shoes crushing against the gravity of the earth. So he's gonna take all that off, and very quickly he's gonna come over and go right into a jump. Let's see it. All right. Now, we've been in here working out and shooting demo videos all day, so that's not necessarily his best jump. But again, it's not actually enough weight relative to his size. This is just a demo of how this process works. But what's going to happen ideally when you take someone using the appropriate weight and they've gone through the appropriate workout and they haven't taken a couple hundred jumps already today, what's going to happen is that their foot, their ankle, right, we're dealing with the point of contact is the ground. It's great if you're strong at the knee, at the hip, but if you've got trash feet and ankles, you're not going to jump very high. What this is going to do, in addition to simply strengthening those areas, is that you have this almost quasi-isometric action where he was just under that tension for so long that once you take it away, come jump again. Once you take it away, he's going to feel like he has sea legs. But what we're looking to see, all right, 33-1. So that illustrates another thing. That first jump normally is going to be wonky and weird. So we just literally come over, get it out of the way as quickly as possible while that effect is still fresh. So the first jump, it's almost like the body is calibrating and figuring out what is it doing from that, potentiation that the belted marching created. But what happens, why he jumps higher once he starts to settle into that effect, I'm going to have him jump again in a second, why he jumps higher is that whole, 2 minutes and change that he was probably going there, his calf is flexing, his foot is flexing, he's under tension the whole time. We're not moving a whole lot, he's barely bending his knees. So even though he might feel exhausted, he might feel gassed from simply the downward pressure that whole time, he's not actually going to be very sore. Even tomorrow, he's not going to be sore from that. And the exhaustion that he feels right now is more so going to be from just this overwhelming feeling of pressure and the fact that his central nervous system is just lit up. So come do another. So you're going to watch, his feet are going to snap through a little harder than they maybe, there we go, 31-7. His feet are going to snap through a little harder, a little crisper, a little faster. He's just going to be a little more violent at the point of contact, the point of collision, which is the ground and your foot. So, it's great to be strong at the knee, at the hip. It's great to squat a lot, deadlift a lot, clean a lot, whatever you do. It's great to do a lot of it. But it doesn't mean a whole lot if you got flat tires. Your car's not going to go very fast. So this is how we inflate those tires, inflate those feet. What we would typically do is he would jump basically in another round of, anywhere from 4 to 8 attempts until he saw that his jumps were starting to come back down. So you saw real quickly, he went 30, 33 and change, 31 and change. We'll have him go again just for the sake of demonstration here. If this jump is down somewhat, if it's say below what his last one was, let's see it, 32.6. So that's kind of close to that 33 that he just hit. So I would have him keep jumping until he started to fall back down. As soon as he started to fall back down, we would come back over to this loading pin. We would take another 45-pound plate. We would stack it on. And ordinarily, we'd probably just do 1 or 2 rounds of that. But I've had days where we just decided we're not going to squat today. We're just going to go break our jump PRs. And I've seen kids do this as many as 5 rounds of 2 minutes, coming over and jumping 4 to 8 times in between. And they end up at the end of the day with PRs that are sometimes in excess of 4 inches higher than they had ever jumped before. Now, the great thing is that while this is a method of potentiation, post-activation potentiation, it seems to hold relatively well because, again, you're getting the kid to feel, you're getting the athlete to feel what that action of involuntarily pushing off harder and faster is. The more times they feel it, the more likely that potentiation is to kind of ingrain itself and hold. Because after all, rate of force development stuff, jumping, there's a huge cognitive component. You have to know how to put forth the intent to match it. So that's our belted march PAP system, our post-activation potentiation. We'll also do this with, instead of belted marches work great for guys or girls, but sometimes instead, we'll have our guys do trap bar carries for 400 to 600 feet per round. And for whatever reason, again, that sort of stepping over, that pedaling action of the foot that happens when you do a trap bar carry, when you're just walking and pushing off, that push off action is what's creating, just over and over and over again, all of that tension, all of that, being loaded up and sort of coiled up for so long, that pushing through action is what creates that effect when you come over and jump. So we'll do trap bar carries much the same way. It'll take them about 2 to 3 minutes. It'll take them, about 2 minutes, or they'll drag a sled. With our girls, we see a lot of times that they respond on average a little better to the sled than they do to the trap bar carry. With the trap bar carries, it's because they're just extremely taxing on the upper body. And again, it's this combination of finding the appropriate overload of force and tension mixed with that time. So with girls, their upper bodies are typically not as strong, typically not as big. So finding the load that's going to stimulate their lower body through that trap bar carry sometimes comes at the cost of being too much load on their upper body, just being too taxing. So it takes more than it gives. But for guys, a little bit bigger upper bodies, they're able to handle loads that are going to transfer down. And sometimes we see much more explosive, gains through that potentiation with the trap bar than we do with the belted march. But the belted march, whether you got guys or girls, it's going to be a great option. And again, building up, think about how many athletic, activities happen out in this wide stance, whether you're playing, defense, whether you're, playing basketball, football, soccer, it doesn't matter. At some point in time, you have to get wide, you have to change directions, even if one of those feet is off the ground and you've got to push with one foot or the other. So that's our belted march system.